Wisconsin farmers will soon have more options when it comes to repairing their John Deere farming equipment. A settlement between Deere and Company, the Federal Trade Commission, and 5 states, including Wisconsin, requires the company to provide farmers and independent repair shops with the same software and repair resources available to authorized dealers. The agreement resolved an antitrust lawsuit alleging Deere unfairly locked farmers into dealer-only repairs by restricting access to key diagnostic tools.
There's going to be oversight of this agreement for a 10-year period by the Federal Trade Commission and by Wisconsin and the other 4 states that are involved. And making sure that Deere lives up to the terms of the settlement is an important part of this. If there is a failure to comply here, then we will be prepared to take action.
The settlement also requires Deere to provide future repair tools once they're available to most of its dealer network and prohibits the company from retaliating against farmers or independent repair shops that use them.